Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm Dbt07 here. Today we are back to cover Eugene in set 7. And frankly, this has been such a interesting set. I mean, you want to talk about the implications of set 7 on the meta. It's quite weird in the sense that you have so much good stuff and so much bad stuff. But something you can certainly agree on is that set 7 has given us Eugene support. And there has been no Eugene support for the last 3 sets in terms of direct support, and 2 sets if you don't count the fact that we received 1 card in set 4, which would be the Eugene Turtle, which I'm sure you have seen my video on that by now. So yeah, so we're gonna do a refresher on Eugene as well as talking about the new cards that he has gotten. Eugene, for the most part, has received new stuff in the sense that he actually has the ability now to no longer be fully name locked. He's now locked by deck, which is just Eugene, which is so much better because, you know, Hex-Orb Sorceress also managed to emerge and move off from this trend. She managed to weave off last set, and it's finally Eugene's turn. And, you know, after a year, I would think that they would actually do it, and they did. I know a lot of people are still on a lot of mixed opinions regarding Meteor Flare. Personally, I get that it's good, I feel that it's good, but I just don't think it's as busted as people say it is, because, you know, I just don't think so, and I'll explain why in a bit. But he is still an essential for Eugene to play at a higher level. If you can't afford this guy, and I'm saying this now because the chances are you would not be able to afford him, you know, just know that it's still okay. You can still play the other strong Eugene cards that we've gotten from the last few set stuff, like, you know, your Tribash and so on and so forth. It's just that if you can really get your hands on this guy, I would actually recommend you to do so because he's actually really cool. But in any other Dragon Empire deck, I just don't really see this popping off that well unless we enter a meta where it's more heavy on the con skills or heavy on resist. But beyond that, I just don't see him being meta warping in any shape or form. But how is Eugene in general? So we're going to cover the right deck first, as well as all the other support that Eugene has gotten in this set, consolidating it with the past support that we are still playing, and just wrap it up from there. Eugene honestly does not have a strong and diverse card pool as Hex-Orb, where we could really dive into the last 6 sets worth of support. We do not have that. But instead, what we do have is a few highlight cards that stay from set to set that are able to still be played. I mentioned Tribash, but Tribash is no longer played in the deck, which sucks, but you know what, we have to move on. Thank you, Tribash, for helping me for the last 6 sets, and, you know, getting to D. You will be missed. So let's actually start with the right line right here. The right line here, as we have, is going to be the same right line from set 1. It's no different, but I will explain since we've not done a Eugene deck profile in so long. We have Bart, the grade 0. This is Nigel, the grade 1. Nigel, when rolled upon by Randor, the grade 2, you soul charge 1. Okay, not bad. And his second skill is that when your opponent's rear guard's retired, you can counterblast 1, retire him, and then after that choose one of your opponent's rear guard to retire it. So back in set 1, this was a 1-to-1 poke. Alright, really cool. But, you know, now we have stronger and better cards, and we even have a stronger version of it now in the form of Andra. So yeah, do stay tuned for her because she's literally just a better version of that. Our grade 2 is, sorry, this is our grade 3. Our grade 2 we have is Randor. Randor, when rolled upon by Eugene, you move a card from your drop zone into the soul and draw 1. So it's a pretty nice, you know, way to build up the soul without actually paying any resources, and a free draw. Cool. And when he attacks on VOR, you can counterblast 1. If your opponent has 2 or less rear guards, you soul charge 1, and your Vanguard gains 5,000 power. This unit gains 5,000 power. So we used to start off by saying, never use Randor's skill, Randor's crap, to now Randor's counterblast skill is one of the essential build-ups of the Eugene deck. And it still is, you know, as much as I hate soul charging my over trigger, which has actually happened for the last 6 games of testing. That's why I'm actually feeling really, really sad. But beyond that, you know, it's quite okay. You need to build the soul, and you don't really have that many ways to contribute to the soul anymore, not like previous Eugene. So do keep in mind that you actually do need to use this ability more often than not, because Eugene as a deck has now moved away from its sole purpose to, you know, focusing on retiring and beating down. Now, that's not to say that Eugene doesn't have support for its Soul Plus 5 skill. It has new cards to fuel the soul, and it has new cards to stack the top of the deck, including a promotional rare. I'm not playing any of these cards for this build. This build is meant to focus on Eugene as an aggressive and retiring deck in line with his Narukami roots. Eugene, once per turn, you rest 2 of your rear guards, choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it. He gains an additional 10,000 power. Once per turn, if you retire the rear guard this turn by a card's effect, your opponent's rear guard. You Soul Plus 5, look at the top number of cards in your deck equal to the number of rear guard circles your opponent has open. You can superior call any number of them, you soul charge the rest. Yeah, it's the same skill for the last 1 year plus. Nothing has changed. So at least that's a quick refresher for all of you on what the right deck does. Moving on to the great trees in our deck, we play obviously 3 copies of Eugene in the main deck and 1 in the right line, and then we also play 3 copies of Andrea. So Eugene, I mean, it's pretty obvious why we play Eugene. We really like the Persona Right. Persona Right is very important. But what does Andrea do? Andrea, as long as your Vanguard is Eugene, just Eugene, by the way, just Eugene, you retire this unit, choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it. So it's a 1-for-1 snipe, which is exactly the same as Nigel used to do a year ago. Except that she's completely free, she does not need a rear guard to retire first, so she can be your first retire, and you can actually proc it after resting her, because she doesn't need to be standing or sitting or anything. Why are we playing this over Tribash is because now in set 7, we actually have our hands on Ziegenberg in the form of Oswald. Oswald is going to retire the board to be full empty, as well as other stuff such as, of course, Meteor Flare. And from, how many sets ago, we are still playing Dustin, who benefits from having an empty board. Generally speaking, as long as you've played Blade Master or Death Onyx Drill, you understand the idea of having a clear board. And you will need as many cards as possible to dedicate to such a call set. This is really one of the easiest ways to do it. No questions asked, get rid of her, get rid of your opponent's red cards. I wish this card could move to Soul. I feel that would be significantly better. But it is what it is, and for rare, I'm not going to exactly complain about it. Moving on to our grade 2s. Our grade 2s, we obviously play 4 copies of Meteor Flare Dragon MFD. And then we play 4 copies of Dustin. Our good friend Dustin is still here after a very long time. And rightfully so, because it's a solid grade 2. And speaking of older friends, we still play Gibrasaurus. All the way from set 2. Amazing. And we play Randolph in the right deck. So let's break it down. More rather than not, you've already met Dustin as well as Gibrasaurus, but I feel it's important to address them once again. Gibrasaurus, once per turn, if your Vanguard is the full name of the base Eugene, you can Soul Blast 1 and rest this unit, choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it. The next skill, and then at the start of the battle phase, your opponent has 1 or less rear guards, you stand this unit and it gains 5,000 power. Now, it can auto rest itself at a cost to retire one of the rear guards, and it can stand back up as a 15k attacker, which is nice, including turn 2, because it does not require your opponent to be grade 3 or greater. The rest itself clause is strictly for Eugene. The snipe clause is strictly for Eugene. Gibrasaurus can still attack on turn 2 as a 15k beater, which is really good. The fact that it's an activated skill means that you can use this every turn. And having a card that can actively destroy one of your opponent's rear guards every turn is a huge deal, especially given the fact that we now have stuff like Oswald. Now, for anyone who's played stuff like my Blade Master or Death Onyx Drill, you know that it's not just about on-place removal effects. There's a reason why Death Onyx Drill didn't exactly pop off in Narukami all the way until stuff like Gauntlet Buster or Cho-Oh came in. Well, I mean, those are relatively bad examples, but I would say if you look at stuff like Blade Master, the examples there, where if you are planning to keep an opponent's board empty, you're going to need to have cards that can constantly retire. Gibrasaurus is one of the few cards that can do that at an effective cost. So I do recommend you play 4 Gibrasaurus till now. So if you bought him, good job. You have, you did a good monetary decision, but if you haven't yet for your Eugene decks, please pick him up. Speaking of Eugene staples, we have Dustin. Dustin, as long as your Vanguard is the full name of base Eugene, you can move a card from your hand to the soul, choose one of your opponent's grade 2 or greater rear guards, and retire it. So it's free. It's a free removal, and you draw a card, of course. So you put a card from hand to soul, you draw. So basically an on-play snipe one. It's free. And when he attacks, you Soul Blast 1, and Dustin gains 2000 power for each one of your opponent's front open rear guard circles. So if your opponent's whole ball is empty, he gains 10. That's not bad at all. And considering the fact that you can move a card from hand to the soul, Dustin can effectively fuel its own cost once, but afterwards it's going to cost you soul to make sure you can keep up the plus 10k, or just in general plus how many numbers k, which is cool. You know, Dustin is still a pretty good card in my opinion. I would say he's definitely a must play. There is a time though where Dustin will be leaving his deck, same with Tribasaurus, because we don't know if Eugene is going to stay as the base Vanguard because of his name. So, you know, you might want to prepare for him not being a part of this deck in the future, but as far as I'm concerned, it's been a year and a half, and yeah, he's still going strong. Good job, Dustin. Speaking of generic people, let's talk about Meteor Flare. I've talked a bit about him in the introduction, but I feel we need to thoroughly get into him so that we actually understand what exactly we're trying to understand here. When placed on a rearguard circle, all your opponent's rearguards lose the continuous ability and cannot gain continuous abilities until the end of this turn. This is for your opponent's rearguards, not the opponent's vanguard, not the opponent's order zone, rearguards. So resist is shut down, but stuff like Eva is not shut down. Stuff like Magnolia Elder is not shut down. Just keep that in mind. But resist is a huge thing to shut down because we need, you know, an empty board for stuff like, you know, his second skill, where if your opponent's grade 3 or greater and your opponent's board is empty, he gains 10. But that's not all he does though. If you apply a Counterblast 1 when he's placed, he also gets the ability to retire one of your opponent's rearguards in the same column as him. So on place, he's a CB1 retire 1, and he shuts down resist. And if you're going second, and you know your opponent's grade 3 greater, he actually gains 10k as long as your opponent's board is empty. Overall, pretty good card, and drawn by the best artists in Vanguard, so it just gets better. But you need to understand that this is not the be-all end-all of Eugene support. This is not going to save the deck. This is by no means doing any of the above. You still leave issues to be desired. Firstly, it's Counterblast. Counterblast is now a newly competing resource because of stuff like Randall, and you also have stuff like Oswald. Oswald, who will demand one Counterblast per turn to keep playing the game. Secondly, it's an on-place, right? So after you place him, you retire him. Cool, for that turn you have an extra retire, but afterwards he's a 20k beater you have to work towards, which is a bit harsh if you ask me. But it's good because, you know, Dustin needs to pay Soul Blast 1 to keep his 10k. This guy doesn't, as long as you know, just keep killing the board. So he's not a bad card whatsoever. As you can tell, returning off resist is a huge thing because it saves the few matchups where Oswald cannot proc. It saves the few matchups where Dustin cannot proc. So you definitely do need to play a Meteor Flare for this deck in terms of a competitive standpoint, if you are for some reason a competitive Eugene player. But other than that, there is no reason for you to actually want this guy at the price point he's currently at, or even at all, because I'm not sure whether, you know, moving forward, this is a card that will actually continue to see play in the deck. Like I said, the main two factors for this guy going forward is if the meta shifts towards having more con skills and more, you know, resist-based stuff, and secondly, if Eugene actually gets good, because if Eugene actually starts to see more resist opponents, this guy is going to keep going up. It's going to be seen more often. But if not, no, it's not really going to be there. If people just don't play resistant, period, you just won't see it, because the non-plays Counterblast 1 retire 1, he's literally worse than Kizan Rage at that point. So you just have to keep that in mind that that is the thing that does go on. As a card, I think it's really amazing that they've printed a card that can turn off resist, because we've not actually had that. But you know what, for the most part, I'm still fine with this card. I still think it's absolutely amazing, so please do play it in your Eugene decks if you can afford it. Lastly, of course, is Randolph, a right deck, but we've already discussed Randolph, so I won't get into it much further. Moving on to our grade 1s. Our grade 1s really are quite simple, so let's actually move it through real quick. We still play 4 copies of the Eugene Turtle, Gates Fort. We still play 4 PG, obviously, and we play 4 copies of Oswald alongside Nigel. So for Nigel, he's for the right deck, don't have to explain. PG because we are interested in winning and playing the game. But if you can't afford the set 1 PGs, you still have the set 6 PGs. So do try and look for those. We play Gates Fort. Gates Fort is whenever your opponent's rear guard's retired, once per turn, stand him, he gains 2000 power. He is the main target you rest for Eugene. I mentioned about you not having as many onboard retires as much as possible. Eugene as a Vanguard does enable his own skill, so you should help him out. Gates Fort is the primary target to help him ensure that he can keep on shooting your opponent's rears with a solid 10k booster to boot. But that's really all he is. He's just the Eugene target. So, there is a possibility in the future he's not really seen much in the deck. He even got booted out of Overlord already because you have so many better Overlord cards. So, Gates Fort is nice to have, but I don't know about its future-proof viability. But for now, I would say there is no harm in still keeping him around. He is still one of the best Eugene Grade 1s we have. And this is the best Eugene Grade 1 we have. It's Oswald. Oswald, when at the end of the bell, that he boosts Eugene, just Eugene, it doesn't have to be this Eugene, it's just any Eugene. If your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater and he has no rear guards left, Counter Blast 1, discard 1, choose your Vanguard, stand it, its drive and crit are reduced to 1. Yes, it is Ziegenberg, yes, it is Downing's Drill all over again. I cannot for the life of me have imagined this would be, a thing, because this is really just like a card I would have custom wrote myself. But okay, cool, we actually have it. No freaking way. It's good because it gives Eugene a new dimension of play. Eugene, for the longest time, has just been a reactive control deck that just shoots with 3 attacks and then you just, clap your hands together, go home and take your table 500 slot. But no, now you have a restanding Vanguard. It's a very rudimentary restand because it's just a drive minus 1 restand. Essentially, you don't even plus, it's a net 0 to boot. It's not like Detonate's Drill or Ziegenberg where, if your opponent has no rear guards, it can become a plus. But in this sense, you don't, which sucks. But to be fair, you are going to be restanding more rather than not a 23k plus Vanguard, which is a big deal in a 5k shield format. The only other downside of Oswald is obviously the fact that you have to keep the opponent's board empty. So do actually keep that in mind because honestly, Oswald is really good. And in the future, if Eugene gets better, I can only foresee Oswald himself getting better. It's just that, if you've noticed your matchups don't really allow you to play such a card because this is a rearguard skill after all. And it has to boost a Vanguard. So you have to find it, get it by turn 4, install it. Not very easy as you would think. So yeah, just remember that this guy exists, play him because he's good, but do keep in mind of his limitations because it will actually help you in terms of building your deck towards Oswald. Because I feel that now at this point in time, you are building the Eugene deck around this guy. It is virtually him. When you build Ziegenberg, when you build Detonate's Drill, you build the decks around them to capitalize on this restand. You have to do the same for Oswald. And that's what I'm attempting to do in this deck profile. But, you guys may have other ideas. So let me know in the comment section below if you actually figure something out or you just have a better strategy of Oswald in general. I'd love to hear it. Our grade 0s, we play our starter. It's our starter. We play 4 effect crits because they're nice. 4 other crits, 1 Trigger over trigger. We have to restanding Vanguards, and then obviously we play 3 effect draws and 4 heals. Just wrap it up. No counter heals because I really just prefer the balance that regular heals can offer me. There's not much of an incentive for me to try and counter around specific meta if I can just play safe more rather than not. To me, that's just how I feel. And that actually wraps up Eugene for set 7. Considering the fact that these cards have been revealed for less than a day for some of them, and we've literally just gotten our hands on it, I feel like there's a lot to be said and not to be said about these cards. Frankly, are these cards good for Eugene? Absolutely. Are these cards going to be mental warping for Eugene? Absolutely not. Because you still have quite good stuff in this set and in the format in general. Kyrie Yuika is still at large, Nirvana is still at large, Bruce is still at large, Bastion is still at large, Hexaop is still at large, Different Fight is still at large with Eva. There is really a lot of things out there that you should be fearing. Even stuff like Flankburg, for example, or even skilled Zorga players. They do exist. But to say that Eugene is still the worst deck in format is a far cry. Eugene is definitely one of the better decks out there, and this set has clearly cemented his place out of the rut. He is no longer going to be the joke of a ban list. He's no longer going to be the joke of a tier list. He's definitely going to be standing much higher than he used to be. He's no longer your auto-includes when it comes to your D, E, and F tier. He's going to be standing there at 2, 3, or even 1 for some people. And that's really perfectly fine, because he's deserved this. It's been 6 sets, and he's not even got support in 3 sets. So, yeah, but is this support worth looking out for if you're looking from an opponent's perspective? I'll say not so much, because if you're worried about Eugene, you have a lot more issues playing in a harsher format than Eugene himself. D is in a great space right now, and the fact that even Eugene can do relatively well with these new cards, it says a lot. So in my opinion, it's a thumbs up to Bushiroad, it's a thumbs up to Kidani. Yes, I didn't like the fact that I have to pay so much for a generic triple rare, but you know what? It's not even going to complain anymore, because it's a good thing we even have support. Some decks just don't get supported in some sets anymore. So I'm more than willing to fork out as much yen as needed to keep playing a deck that I actually enjoy. I never thought I would be saying that, but yeah, that is actually true. So thank you all so much for watching. This is the start of our Dbt07, cruise, in the sense that we'll be covering some decks from Dbt07. So if there's any decks that you'd like me to actually talk about, you can let me know in the comment section below. The chances are I won't be able to, and I won't be able to afford them, but there is a chance I could, or even planning to already. So just let me know in the comment section below. If you would like to talk about Eugene in general, if you feel that Eugene is a deck worth your time in learning, worth your time learning the matchup, or just in general you just want to know more about our favorite Desert Gunners, you can also just talk about it in the comment section below. This deck is relatively new in the sense that a lot of these cards are less than 2 days old. So, there's still a lot to discover, even for myself included. I've put in a lot of games with this deck already, more rather than not, but yeah, I myself included have a lot to learn, and frankly does the whole community, because you don't just master a card in 24 hours, right? Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all next time. Stay safe. Goodbye.